this is Who is Dr. John Mcdougall, Part 2. We're continuing. This is the book, John Mcdougall, The Doctor Who Fought for You, by me, Pete Rogers. Okay, so here we are on page 24. In 1980, a citizen group in Hawaii was trying to get a law passed that women with breast cancer should be informed that mastectomy doesn't improve survival compared with lumpectomy. And that's because the horse is already out of the barn. It's already probably, micrometastatic at least, and that's going to determine survival rather than the local operation. So Mcdougall helped to try to make that, routine, that the patient should be informed before they consent to a surgery about what their true options are. And he caught a lot of feedback for that. Oh, this is just a picture. I'm illustrating the book with these medieval chivalry type pictures. Here's Sir Galahad on his quest for the Holy Grail with the ultimate healing powers, painting by Arthur Hughes from 1870. And what I'm trying to say is, Mcdougall was looking for the Holy Grail, and he found it. It's a starch-based vegan diet. That's the most powerful thing in all of medicine by far. That, in a low-fat format with no oils. 100% vegan. Okay, and let's see. Mcdougall basically helped to get the law passed that they have to give a true informed consent. But the doctors who ran the malpractice system in California were so pissed off at him that they refused to renew his malpractice insurance. And they tried to put him out of business, basically. He had to go, I think it was for a couple of years, next 2 years, bare, meaning having no insurance. In his entire career, he was never sued, by the way. And you notice the pattern, though. When a doctor breaks out of the standard way of doing things, the conventional way of doing things, the system punishes them. Like Ralph Waldo Emerson had said, when a person is nonconformist, the world whips you with its displeasure. And that is very true. No one cares about patients. If all the patients die, no one will care. But if the doctor breaks a rule that causes the system to lose money, the you-know-what hits the fan, and that doctor will get in trouble. It's just how it is. Because you've got to remember, the people who designed the medical system are the ones who get the most money from it. They don't want anything to change. That's why medicine's so stupid, that no real change is allowed unless it makes money. So the good ideas, unless they're profitable, they're just immediately rejected. Okay, it's kind of like organized crime, really. It's a drug-dealing business, okay? And nobody better, impinge on that drug-dealing turf, okay? Okay, and the doctor is like a street corner drug dealer. They're paid to be a drug dealer, not to be a healer. Okay, let's see. And that's also why doctors are so conformist. The guy just, got out of med school. He's got, $500,000 of loans to pay off. Do you think he wants to rock the boat and risk getting in trouble by trying to improve things? No way. He's going to match the older the pill and send a bill, collect his money, follow the standard of care, can't get in trouble. See as many patients as possible per day to generate the most possible billing codes, and all the bean counters will be happy with them. And if they follow the standard of care, no matter what happens to the patient, they still get paid. If you educate a patient, teach them and empower them, you don't get paid for that. And the bean counter at the clinic, wherever they work, is going to want them to be, generating billing codes. Okay? So if somebody behaves like Mcdougall did, they start getting a warning from the bean counter. So the docs then are pressured to go and start their own business, but it's very hard to make money doing that. Okay? Any doc that wasn't seeing as many patients as the other patients in some clinic or some hospital, the bean counter would say, you're not pulling your weight, we're going to let you go unless you see more patients. So they either have to follow the standard way of doing things, or they go home late every night and then they're sleep deprived, and that doesn't work so well for them either. Those are the limited choices of a doctor. Mcdougall, he's a genius. He was able to make it work for himself. He's able to write best-selling books. But you got to remember, the average doctor is not a genius. The average doctor's got an IQ of about 120. They're very hardworking. They tend to be very conformist. They're like accountants. They do what they're told because that's what they're paid to do. They're not free-thinking, original minds, okay? And I just tell you that. Mcdougall, he graduated first in his class. He's a really bright guy. But other doctors, they can't. They're not smart enough. They don't have the energy to write books that are going to make a profit for them, to be mavericks. They don't. If they toe the line, sell their drugs, do as they're told, follow the standard of care, they're going to get money. They're not going to get in trouble. That's what they're going to do. And they have no reason whatsoever to change that. You have to get that through your head, that what happens to the patient is irrelevant. It really doesn't matter. The general attitude of the system is that the patients are stupid idiots and they get what they deserve. Okay, I'm sorry, but that's reality. And it's important to recognize that, because the typical patient comes in thinking, oh, isn't this medical stuff wonderful? All this modern technology, isn't this fantastic? They don't understand. The system's designed to profit off them, not to help them. And until you realize that, you don't know how to use the system. Because there is a lot of valuable knowledge in the system, and there's valuable technology, but you have to use it in an intelligent, focused way, not in a random way. Okay, McDougall's real good at, his newsletter's real good, his YouTube videos, all that stuff is good, his website, it's all good. The doctors, they don't know nutrition, epidemiology, toxicology, and that's the stuff related to actually taking care of patients. Okay. All right, we talked about this, why doctors don't... we also were talking about CME. CME is kind of a joke, continuing medical education. If you go for continuing medical education, let's say to a nice warm place, like somewhere tropical, the doctor signs in on the attendance sheet and goes out to the beach for the rest of the day, gets their credits. And even if they went to the lectures, it'd be funded by a drug company and be a joke anyways. The conventional system, it reminds me of Dante with Virgil in Dante's Inferno, where they were before the gates of hell, and it says, abandon hope, all ye who enter. They admit that they never will cure diabetes, hypertension, or the chronic diseases. That's why they call them chronic. Okay, so it's kind of a joke that they consider themselves the standard, the best, when they never cure. But the low-fat vegan diet cures those diseases all the time. Obesity, diabetes, hypertension, atherosclerosis, coronary artery disease, a lot of times impotence and other diseases. Okay, here's a picture of Dante and his Divine Comedy. And basically, only a fool would choose to continue with the sad diet and drugs and pills and surgery when you could just cure yourself with a low-fat vegan diet. I mean, it's kind of obvious to anybody with, above or room temperature IQ, please. Okay. And the way hospitals tend to look at doctor quality is they measure productivity. And if you're measuring productivity, what matters is quantity, not quality. Standard of care is the level of quality that's required, and that's it. And that's a very low bar to set. So speed is what is rewarded. Speeding the patient, throughput, because that's where the money comes from. And so they'll never ever look at outcomes, because if they looked at outcomes, somebody would introduce a low-fat vegan diet and they'd have the best outcomes, and that would make the drugs look bad. So they will never do that. I've never seen a hospital that kept track of patient outcomes. Okay, there's no money in that. They might track one specific thing for a research study, but in terms of routinely tracking, what are our outcomes with hypertension, with diabetes, with coronary artery disease, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see what else. Where does the standard of care come from? Well, you need something to apply to all the, cognitively impaired, demented, old folks and stuff. And where the standard of care largely comes from is big name research university hospitals where the professors want to get grant money from, and the only person who's got the money is Big Pharma. So they have to write what Big Pharma wants. And then that becomes the standard for everyone else to go by. Okay. And if a doctor doesn't do that, like let's say, when T. Colin Campbell published papers criticizing animal protein, when Dr. Mcdougall said, these supplements aren't helpful, they get fired. So the doctors, the scientists, they all have to play ball. And the goal of the system is to turn the patient into a chump, milked every day like a cow on chronic medications. And somebody said to Dr. Mcdougall, why can't you just talk about nutrition? Why do you criticize stuff that other doctors do, like mastectomy, stents, and cabbage? And Dr. Mcdougall said, I took an oath to protect the patients. I didn't take an oath to protect the financial interests of the medical industry. So that kind of stuff made a lot of people not like him. And you have to be kind of self-righteous and uppity, like, Don Quixote, going through his books of knight-errant and chivalry. If you're going to support the little guy. And then, Mcdougall had to basically make his big speech to the public, to his family. Look, I'm going to go this nutrition route and take my chances with it. And he was very poor for quite a while because he had done that. He just said, I can't practice medicine in this, match the ill to the pill, send the bill way. Okay, and then, he ended up getting his library burned down and his old house burned down. I don't know exactly how that happened. And this is the family. They also had to flee after their house was on fire. Reminds me of this painting, In Time of Peril by Edmund Layton. The other paintings were from the book Don Quixote. And here's Don Quixote with Sancho Panza, his friend. And I said this reminds me of like McDougall with one of his friends, And now they're going to try to advise him like Doug Lyle. John, you might not want to argue with these insurance companies or these surgeons, You go charge a windmill, you get knocked over. Nothing good happens from it. Okay, just kind of going through the background on Mcdougall, and then also, like, what does he get? So Mcdougall's probably the greatest doctor who ever lived, and what is his reward in conventional world? On Wikipedia, they say he's a vegan extremist, a vegan zealot, that he's a quack, basically, that whereas doctors who create profitable procedures that are celebrated as heroes, like here's Andreas Grunzig, he invented the coronary artery balloon angioplasty, and he's celebrated as this great hero. And that doesn't increase longevity. Don't get me wrong, it was a clever scientific invention, but in terms of like the actual usefulness to patient, that compared to the starch-based vegan diet, there's no comparison. That starch-based vegan diet cures coronary artery disease. Stenting doesn't even change how long they live unless it's in an acute myocardial infarction setting. So a lot of times the glamorous thing doesn't really help the patient much, and the simple basic thing does, but there's no money in it. And again, this is what it's like to tell the truth in medicine. If you bullshit the population, you get big money. You get all these sponsors. You don't even need to work anymore. If I did that, I could retire, but I wouldn't respect myself. I wouldn't respect myself in the morning. Okay, this painting is called Faded Laurels by Edmund Leighton the Great, to Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood of England, 1889, that one is from. Okay, Mcdougall helped found the American College of Medicine. He tried to get Senate bill passed requiring schools to teach nutrition to students, but there's always some way they could work around it. Mcdougall says the most important thing in medicine is food. That's actually very true. Not very glamorous, but it's true. There should be a field of nutrition medicine. It should be required in all med schools. But again, nobody knows how to make big money off it, so it ain't happening. Okay. Let's see here. This is a quote by, I think this is Ralph Waldo Emerson quote. Oh yeah, this is a big Ralph Waldo Emerson quote, like from his American Scholar. The book, the college, the school of art, the institution of any kind, they stop with the past. This is good, they say. Let us hold by this. They pin me down. They look backward, not forward, but genius looks forward. Man hopes, genius creates. The scholar is that man who must take up into himself all of the ability of the time, all of the contributions of the past, all of the hopes of the future. It is for you to know all. Whoso would be a man must be a nonconformist. For nonconformity, the world whips you with its displeasure. It is only when they cannot answer your reasons that they wish to knock you down. The best argument is not the accosting in front of the hostile premises, but the flanking them by a new generalization which incidentally disposes of them. Colleges hate geniuses, just as convents hate saints. Universities are, of course, hostile to geniuses who, seeing and using the ways of their own, discredit the routine. God offers to every mind its choice between truth and repose. Take which you please, you can never have both. The office of the scholar is to cheer, to raise, and to guide men by showing them facts amidst appearances. He plies the slow, unhonored, and unpaid task of observation. But he is in his private observatory cataloging obscure and nebulous stars of the human mind, which as yet no man has thought of as such, watching days and months, sometimes for a few facts, correcting still his old records, and he must relinquish display and immediate fame. In the long period of his preparation, he must betray often an ignorance and shiftlessness in the popular arts, incurring the disdain of all those who are able to shoulder him aside. Long he must stammer in his speech, often forego the living for the dead. Worse yet, he must accept, how often he must accept, poverty and solitude. For the ease and pleasure of treading the old road, accepting the fashions, the education, the religion of society, he takes the cross of making his own, and the position of virtual hostility in which he seems to stand to society, and especially educated society. For all this loss and scorn, what is the offset? The offset is that he is to find consolation in exercising the highest function of his human nature. He is the one who raises himself from private considerations and breathes and lives on in public and illustrious thoughts. He is the world's eye. He is the world's heart. He is to resist the vulgar prosperity that retrogrades ever to barbarism by preserving and communicating heroic sentiments, noble biographies, melodious verse, and the conclusions of history. These he shall receive and impart. These being his functions, it will become him to feel all confidence in himself and to defer never to the popular cry. He and he alone knows the world. Ralph Waldo Emerson, who lived from 1803 to 1882. And what I thought one of the best parts of this speech was, why does he do it? How does he do it? He has to believe that doing what's right for the world is more important than his own personal immediate situation. And I'm telling you, that's why it has to be Christianity, or you cannot save healthcare. And I know it's not going to be saved because nobody wants Christianity, but you have to say, this is more important than myself. This is more important than my family. I'm going to do what's right for mankind. And so you have to have a worldview that says that's the way to go. And all these godless religions and all these just societies where they don't have a God-based worldview, you would say, well, screw it. Why should I, put my face in the dirt and make, $50,000, $100,000 a year when I could make $500,000 and not have all these hassles? Unless you have a religious, ethical foundation that says, I'm going to do what's right, anyone else would just always go for the money. And there's so much money in tricking patients and ripping them off, no one would want to ethically practice all this low-fat vegan stuff unless there was money in it. And there isn't any money in it. So it's never going to catch on because the sort of Bible-based worldview is never going to catch on either. But you should know it. Okay, here's The Bard by John Martin, 1817. And Dr. Mcdougall kind of like out there on his own, like the Bard, like John the Baptist crying out in the wilderness. The secret of health is starch. I found the Holy Grail has starch, and everybody just ignores him. That's pretty much how it goes. Okay, so that's it for this video today, this chapter in the book.